Hello. In a video Tim Pool made, quite a while ago, it left an impression on me. He gave this advice. He said, if someone offers you a job which turns out not to be to your taste, I think he gave the example of being offered a job slinging hamburgers, you don't say no straight away. What you should say is, how much? He said, if they're giving you a job slinging hamburgers and they're offering you $100,000 to do it, then however much you might not like slinging hamburgers, it's a job worth taking. I considered that excellent advice, and it's one you can apply to all sorts of situations. For instance, if you're offered a job and you're going to be working with somebody you don't particularly like, but you're being offered that job for a particularly good reward, then you might be inclined to take it, at least for a time. Now, that reward doesn't have to be money, of course. It can be the good of society. A firefighter running into a burning building isn't particularly well paid, relatively speaking, but does the job anyway because the reward makes up for it, not the financial reward. But when you're coming back out of the building holding that scared child or the singed puppy or whatever it is, it makes the job worth it. Within reason, of course, whatever they pay you. So, with that in mind, let's try to unpick this comment from the Labour Shadow Chancellor, Annalisa Dodds, and this is what she says. First, I'm going to read from The Independent. A leading member of Keir Starmer's shadow cabinet has said she would not feel happy sending her child back to school on the 1st of June unless ministers provide more evidence that it's safe. Now, there's absolutely no way that anyone can prove it's safe. There's no way that anyone can prove anything is safe. I mean, there's no way that anyone can prove that taking your kid to the local swimming pool is safe. As a matter of fact, it isn't safe. There are many things that can happen to a child in a public swimming pool, from drowning to being molested. So, unless Miss Dodds is astoundingly thick, she knows all of that. All right. The recovery strategy set out by Boris Johnson on Monday envisages primary schools reopening their doors to pupils as early as the start of next month, with reception classes year 1 and year 6 the first to return. But Shadow Chancellor Annalisa Dodds said that the government has not yet shown parents that they can allow their children back into classrooms without risking spreading coronavirus. Asked whether she would allow her own 6-year-old son back, the Oxford East MP told BBC Radio 4's Women's Hour, "I would be more than happy to send my own child to school if I knew that by doing so, I would not be potentially harming others. That's the critical issue for me." Well, with respect to Ms. Dodds, I don't think it is the critical issue, actually. I think she's just making political hay out of it while she can. And we don't have that evidence, I feel, currently. You know, it's quite obvious that there can never be proof. Presenter Jane Garvey pressed her, "So that's a no." And Miss Dodds replied, "Well, I don't feel that I have that evidence now." See how many times she's using the word evidence. If government was able to provide that, particularly to publish the scientific information underlying its decisions, we could be in a different situation. The fact is, there are enormous and, well, there are just huge areas of knowledge about COVID-19 that we don't know. I remember a quote by Donald Rumsfeld. He was made much fun of at the time, but he was right. Well, There are known knowns. There are things we know, and we also know there are known unknowns. That's to say, we know there are some things we don't know, but there are also unknown unknowns, the ones we don't know. Anyway, and that's the difficulty, isn't it? We don't know what we don't know about COVID-19. Anyway, back to Ms. Dodds. There is no evidence the government can provide that isn't guaranteed to be completely overturned within hours. Right. As I say, it's not really about my family. Oh, I'm sure it isn't. I'm sure it's far more about political advantage than family. It's about whether we're spreading this disease more broadly. We don't have that evidence in front of us now. She keeps on talking about the fact we don't have evidence in a situation where she knows evidence is an impossibility, like proving innocence. Anyway, the Daily Mail, let's see what they have to say. The Daily Mail reported the same thing, but in, as you may imagine, a more outraged tone of voice. Labour's shadow minister, Annalisa Dodds, says there is not enough evidence it's safe to send children, including her own, back to school. About as what? Including her own, back to school as top union tells its members not to engage with plan to restart classes in June. Okay, so the Daily Mail tells us that the teachers' unions are also opposed to reopening the schools. You know, those unions that fund the Labour Party, of which Ms. Dodds is an important and well-paid official. So it's hardly surprising that Ms. Dodds will follow the union line. You know, I don't entirely blame them. The government says that younger children don't transmit the virus. Do you believe that? Because I don't. I don't care what the evidence is. I'm quite sure that children will get the virus in some way, and that even if they don't show the classic symptoms, there's a distinct possibility that they can carry it and pass it on. And now there are some observations coming out of Italy which show children suffering from unusual inflammatory episodes, let's put it that way. So what we have here is a bunch of teachers who are terrified of catching CV-19 from their pupils, and I don't blame them for that at all. On the other hand, what I do blame them for is that they so hate the Conservatives, they're willing to sacrifice the futures of the children in their charge so they can obstruct the government. And it's not just happening in England, it's happening demonstrably. There's evidence. It's happening in America. It's very similar to what the Democrats are doing because they hate Trump. I can't understand why this internecine virus has grabbed both Britain and America, but it has. Now, let's see. The National Education Union, the NEU, warned its members not to engage with the plans unveiled yesterday, while the head of the National Association of Head Teachers said the plans were irresponsible because it would be impossible to adhere to social distancing. So, instead of the teachers' unions saying, we all have to do our work to help the country, to help the children of our country, and possibly even to put our lives on the line, just like those firefighters, they're acting like an awkward spouse in a bad marriage, you know, the sort who can see that the bath is running over, but won't switch off the tap because that would save the hated other from having to clean up the resultant mess. And the ambition to destruction is so strong that the complete wrecking of the bathroom floor is just a small price to pay. What else do we have here? Oh, here, this is good. In a letter leaked to the Mirror. Now, the Mirror is a Labour Party supporting paper, so I don't think it was leaked. I think it was just issued. The heads of the NEU wrote, so far, the government has not engaged with us to discuss any further advice on social distancing. Well, they're saying they don't intend to engage with the government. So what are they complaining about? Testing in schools, PPE, or about those who are vulnerable, including BME stuff. Look at that, BME stuff. You know, BME, that's a black and a minority ethnicity. Oh, for goodness sake, you have to bring that in, don't you? The point is that instead of coming to the table and trying to work out a solution, the NEU is just telling its members to ignore the government altogether. This, it should be obvious. That's evidence. This is not the action of a group of people concerned about the country or the people of the country or even the children of the country. After all, the children of those teachers and those politicians, they're going to get their education, school or not. My son, all of my sons actually, are well educated, married to educated women. Two of them are teachers, and they're going to educate their children just fine at home. And those politicians, they'll have enough wit to do that. And the teachers, of course, and those politicians and teachers, they're on salaries, so they're going to get their wages no matter what. So the kids are going to be educated and these people are going to get their salaries. The fate of children whose parents don't know anything about education, who can't teach, who never learned how to learn, never mind how to teach, who may be good, solid, hard-working people, but who haven't a clue how to get a kid to sit down and work through his homework. The ones who have to go to work to put food on their families' tables, but cannot because their kids are at home and there's nobody to look after them, they're the ones who are suffering. They'll suffer now and they'll suffer long term in lost educational opportunity, in a stunted future life because of this. And unless teachers are going to come to deal with this, they are going to be responsible for a catastrophe far worse than the coronavirus epidemic. And Ms. Dodds, I can assure you there's plenty of evidence for that. If you want to donate or contact, the information will be rolling over the Graniopteryx as I speak. Please like, subscribe and share because it does help with the algorithm. If you visit my channel on YouTube and one day discover that I've disappeared without warning, you'll still find me on BitChute or Minds. Just go to either of those platforms and do a search for Graniopteryx. If you're already watching this on BitChute or Minds, good for you. Meanwhile, if you're watching this on YouTube, remember that you must keep checking the subscribe and bell icons because occasionally they reset. Till next time.